Hello and welcome to this episode. This is Creative Visions TV and I'm your host, Karen Dahlman. I've got a really exciting guest today, but I'm going to start the show a little differently. I'm going to start with a personal story, and you're going to understand why I must start there, because this personal story actually took me to meet our guest that we have today. So the story spans about 45 years, but we got to go there. So recently, I went to Sedona with some friends. And I've been there several times, but this time was a little different. I was with a group of people who were there for spiritual purposes. We wanted to do maybe like a vision quest on the hill. We wanted to walk in the red rocks, absorb the energy, imbibe it all, and also share in friendship, fun, laughter, and joy. And also, we were there to make connections and to go into some deep meditations, personally on our own and with the group, but to make those connections back to spirit. So let me backtrack now 45 years. When I was a really young little girl, and many of you who watch the show know this, I spoke to spirit beings, all different kinds. And I had an imaginary playmate, which really wasn't imaginary at all. He's still around. He helped me write my third book. But there was this group of beings that would come to me in the evenings when I was asleep in my room, and I would wake up, and standing full-fledged in the brightest aura, largest aura, were these beings that were super tall and filled the doorway. Immediately, I was consumed with unconditional love. I felt so safe, protected, loved, cherished, nourished. I felt whole. I didn't know who these beings were, and in my mind and my belief system, they were just as real as anything else. And I looked forward for them coming. And they came over a period of several years, and they would come intermittently. But when they came, in my perceptions, I could only explain them as either Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy, and maybe an angel. But that's not who they were. Now, fast forward again, 45 years, I'm in Sedona. And I'm with a group of friends. And one of my friends pulls out a fantastic oracle card deck. I've never seen it before. It's this deck sitting right here. Pulls out this oracle card deck, and I said, wow. Interesting images. I like the colors. Let me take a hold of that deck. She said, sure. I picked up the deck, just like this, shuffled the cards, and thought, you know what, I'm going to pull one card and see how I feel about this deck. Well, the card I pulled was this card, known as the Guardians. The beings that used to come in my room at night that filled the doorway were known as the Guardians. The Guardians were here to tell me there's a connection I need to make. And also they were here to rekindle that connection we had. Needless to say, Sedona was magical. And in the process of being in Sedona, I went to the Chocolate Tree, which is a great vegan restaurant, and they have the best chocolate, by the way. And they also showcase great artists. And I got to find this deck of cards, this mystical art medicine, oracle cards for transformation by our guest that will be here today. And I picked up a deck, and I have been using them religiously, devotedly, every day, pulling a card or more. And I find that the images are so rich, so full of life and transformation. They touch me on such a deep level that I had to reach out to the creator of these cards, the creator of this incredible artwork, and meet her myself. So our guest today is this person, and I will get to her name in just a moment. This guest of ours today, she discovered that art was empowering at a young age. She was in school about the age of 13 and realized she could draw. And drawing is what she did. She found a sanctuary in her drawing. She found it as a refuge, as a respite from the terrible abuse that was happening at home where she was living in her household. And then in 1986, she devoted a daily practice of recreating her art onto canvas, onto paper. She dedicated herself to creating every single day and allowing spirit to emerge, allowing these images to come forth and speak to her. Her artwork is imbued, as I mentioned earlier, with such deep, powerful, archetypal images. They speak to such profound levels, deep levels. And you're going to see as we talk to this person today, the depth of what she has to share. She not only does she paint, she does shamanic journeying. She helps others do transformation. She teaches art, but she also brings in other modalities, meditation, journeying, shamanic tools, poetry, writing. She's very creative and allows all of this to bubble up from within and to bring it forth and express it. This deck here has 64 cards, and they are her original artwork made into this deck. And I know she's working on another deck too, which she may tell us about during this interview. Her art spans the world. She shows in Sedona. She also shows in Glastonbury, England. But she has painted around the world in such really unique, powerful places. She is a visionary artist. She offers transformational journeying that involves ceremony, communion, really touching, reaching into those deep depths within that could be found within ourselves. She knows how to navigate the unseen dimensions, you guys. This is another reason why I wanted her on this show. This show was all about how to do that and how to touch that great self within. She does intuitive counseling with people on phone or in person. And as I mentioned, she does teach art. But there's so much more to this person. There's so many facets to her. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Cher Lyn and invite her to the show. Welcome to the show, Cher Lyn. Welcome. Thank you for being here and joining us.
Thank you, Karen. I'm, blown away by what you just shared completely from the beginning of the guardians and the tall ones, I call them. Mm-hmm. To have you share that, I still have tears in my eyes. It's so special. So thank you for sharing that.
Well, you're very welcome. And I did read about your tall ones, and I was like, these are the guardians. This is who she's talking about. And when I communicate with them, they tell me that everybody has the ability to reach and be with them, and they come out to help humanity. They're here to help humanity, and in such profound ways. So that image led me to you and led me to your beautiful deck. And now I own this deck, and now we get to sit with her, you guys, in her studio. She's in her studio space in Sedona, Arizona, with her creations around her, and she's going to just jump right in and tell us a lot about her inspiration and what really brings her to create these pieces of such depth. And so I'd love to start and ask you, we talked about your art. You discovered it at the age of 13. What allowed you just to pursue it and to the levels where you are today with it? What is it about the art for you?
What allowed me to, it was more I was driven. There wasn't anything that could stop me from doing. When I began painting daily in 1986, I literally met a guy in a coffee shop. And he was talking about his mother in the hospital and worried about her. And I'm like, I'll paint her a healing painting. And wow. I took 30 by 40 canvas and I painted this painting just for her, gave it to him, and never saw him again. I painted my friends' spiritual portraits, I called them back then. And I realized that once I was painting these people that I already loved, when I literally was in the process of painting them, my heart was just, really, really, really expanding to a point that I was really surprised that I could love them so much more just by painting. And so that was the beginning of the passion, in a way, I guess. I live for magic, and I witness through the years of practice more magic that I could ever probably talk about.
Well, your cards, again, this deck of cards, it is very magical. The imagery, these are all large paintings that you've put together in this deck. How did you choose, like, what would go into the deck? How did this work for you? I mean, it's maybe they chose you. Did the images choose you, maybe?
In about the year 2000, I realized, after painting all those years daily, literally just about daily, I had a body of work. A lot of them had sold, but I began selling my work 10 years when I got divorced. But I had such a body of work. I love the Sacred Path cards. And I just imagined this deck. Then I got a partner in my life who was a techie, and so he put it on my computer, 4x6, these images. And I would tune into the piece at the time and remember my experience of painting it and choose a quality that it gifted me or what I felt it would give, the quality that it would hold. In 2001, I visited Sedona for my first time and came back in eight times in 1 year. It was only from California, but still. I knew Sedona can call you. When I moved here, I had my art in the gallery, and then it got taken out. And at the time, it had been supporting us. And he was like, well, you're going to have to get a job. And he, it's why we're not together anymore. He really literally meant go get a job at Burger King if you need. And I'm like, that's not what I do. But what I was in the practice of is journaling. And when I moved to Sedona, I had made an intention to go out every single morning and almost every evening as well and sing 4 songs to the mother. I'm a real hermit, and so I didn't want anybody to hear me, but it was my dedication to her. And then I learned about the Aboriginals and how they sing their prayers. And when I learned that, I was like, wow, I'm onto something. This is real. This is my child playing within. And yet I heard this, and I told my friend had said she had a horse that was sick suddenly, and he was dying. They did not understand why. And so I said, well, in one of the 4 rounds of my song, I'm going to sing this song for your horse. And eventually, at one point, within a month, the horse suddenly, a couple of weeks, I don't know, the horse suddenly got up and was okay. And so I had made a practice of going out and honoring the mother no matter what every single morning, even if it was freezing outside.
Wow.
And when this happened, I took my journal out, and I'm also a mermaid, so I had to go out to the water a lot. So I'd go out to the creek, and I sat there this day, and I wrote in my journal, well, if I have to get a job, I want to continue to paint. I want to help people. I want to be by the water. And I don't remember what the 4th one was, but within an hour, and then I sang my songs there at the creek, hoping nobody would hear. And then within an hour, I was driving into town, and I passed the Center for the New Age.
Oh yeah, uh-huh.
And somebody I knew walked out the front door. She was a psychic there, and I pulled in, and I spoke to Claudia, and I told her a little bit about my situation, and just then the owner walked out. And she said, oh, this is Cher Lyn. She's an artist. I pulled out my card, which was Archangel Michael.
Nice.
Handed it to her. She looked at it, and she went, oh, you could be a psychic here and paint spirit guide paintings down by the creek. I have a tent already set up.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, she's like, but you have to read. You have to call yourself a psychic. And I was like, oh.
Strong word.
Yeah, it was out of my box at the time. Yeah, it's still, anyway. So, and everything had fallen, like literally what I had just written an hour or 2 before she was up. I couldn't deny what Spirit was saying.
Oh,
and then
yeah.
I started to remember that I had my deck, and I'm like, wait, I may not feel comfortable reading someone else's deck, but I can do mine. And so printed it up, little mini giclées, and I laminated them in 64, and I did my first reading. My first reading was nervous, and then all the rest of them after that were amazing. I didn't have the book written, but I had the knowing of the Spirit behind the paintings.
Yes.
And I was really, really saw how helpful they were for people. And I was only there for 4 months, and then I moved to Hawaii. And I lived on Maui for almost a year. I kind of I started to really think about writing the book now, but I was also really, really busy doing soul paintings, which I had started to do at the same time. And so I was there for a year. That partnership broke up, the one who wanted me to work at Burger King.
Right. And you worked at the New Age store instead.
Like, yeah. And I ended up flying to Switzerland. I ended up 3 days after he said he wanted to break the relationship off. Instead of fighting, begging, oh, let's keep this going. It's been 5 years. Something said, let it go, let it go, let it go. And so 3 days later, I got a call from a woman that had been my client at the Center for the New Age. She was from Switzerland. She actually had me do reading for her, sound healing, and 2 soul paintings.
Oh, wow.
She wanted a soul painting for her feminine, and she wanted a soul painting for her masculine. It's the only time somebody's asked for that, but she calls me out of the blue 3 days after and says, if I pay your way to come to Switzerland, will you fly here and help me make a healing CD? And
Wow.
so I flew there, and while I was there, again, Center for the New Age. Now, I was a hermit on the mountain before I was in Sedona for
Okay.
more than 5 years. And when I was invited to move here, literally after the 8th visit, literally said, if you move here, run our healing center, hang your art, call it a gallery, you could live here for free while we sell the place. I
Wow.
knew I was meant to come here to Sedona, which got me here. When I went over to the Center for the New Age, that was like the scaredy cat in me going, I can't deny spirit. On the mountain when I was in Malibu, spirit said, I knew I was being, and this partner who wanted me to work at Burger King, he was also very powerful and helped me a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and pushed me out of my comfort zone to be in front of people. And so one of the blessings of facing my fear of going into that situation, a Center for the New Age, was on the second day, the man who sells my art in Glastonbury showed up, had me
Oh.
do his soul painting and a reading, and he bought Archangel Michael, but he didn't just, and he bought a reverence in the deck. It's called
Yes, that's in this deck. I was just going to say, I remember those cards. Yeah.
Honoring the Goddess. And he had specific reasons for both of those. Archangel Michael Glastonbury is the Michael line and the Mary line cross at Glastonbury.
Oh
And
my gosh.
he wanted to grid Glastonbury with Archangel Michael and Sedona. And so when we look at, even when I'm here, now that I've lived in Glastonbury, I see the Chimney Rock here as the tour, and there's this a connection that is really kind of really in the unseen, and yet for me it's not really unseen.
Right, because you know how to access and navigate these realms. I mean, there is so much. I want everybody to really listen to the story she's telling us because you're talking about many things here: synchronicity, trusting spirit, the messages you received, and how everything fell into place, coming out of your comfort zone. So, like, kind of pushing the proverbial box walls away, having the desire to do that, to allow, or I should say, allowing yourself to follow that calling. And you're talking about balancing the masculine and feminine energy. Your clients are asking for this, where the ley lines exist, and as well as do a soul painting of a male and female. There's so much here we're talking about. You must have been just I don't know, blown away by how this just took you in. And you were a mouthpiece for this all and an expression of it.
Thank you. True. True. It truly did. It truly did. And so when I was back to the flight from Hawaii to Switzerland, I was there, and then I went to Glastonbury because this man had purchased Archangel Michael, which hung in the chalice well for 5 years. They asked if he could hang there to be protected. Now he's in a Archangel Michael chapel, but at the time he was at the chalice well.
Wow.
And the second day I was there. Okay, so this is also second day at the Center for the New Age. He shows up in Archangel Michael. Second day in Glastonbury he had 2 stores, Stone Age and Venus, a store called Venus. I was there. He kind of publicized my being. An American woman came through and said, would you please paint Magdalene for me and use the energies of the chalice well? And then I was hired to paint the Christ. And then I painted the Mother Mary at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah.
You and I were talking before we turned on Skype, and in the world right now, there's such divisiveness, and we've seen this interplay between the masculine and feminine energies, right brain, left brain, technology, humanity, and we're trying to find that balance. Maybe you could speak to us a little bit more about that, because I know what you work with is very important to you and to myself too, and I like to share this a lot on the show, is balancing the polarity that we find within ourselves. And I don't mean perfect balance, we know that, but it's like working with these 2 energies and not denying one over the other, and learning to bring them together so they can co-create within our lives. And to me, this is how synchronicity happens. This is how we follow synchronicity, because we have the male, female, masculine, feminine energies within that allow us to hear it and follow. Do you want to speak to that a little bit?
I don't really know where to start. I mean, I have the Venus Returns painting that we were speaking about, and there's a story there that that a poem came through that is called "The Eyes of the Sage," the eyes of a sage, and what it come through was me facing angry eyes in the reflection of the man that I would be intimate with. And it happened over and over. I wanted to introduce this. So we were talking a little bit more about, was it 2012? 2012 that the Venus,
Yes, June
returned.
2012, when the Venus transited the sun. That's right.
Thank you. And so the statistics of that, I'm not really remembering calling up, but I know it's a very, is it 8 years she comes around?
It's a long cycle. I can't remember the years either, but it's a very long cycle, and it's a rarity to see it in her glory when she does that. And that was that was right before the Mayan calendar, 2012. I remember December 21st. This was that June right before it. So it was like this feminine, masculine energy. It was very prominent. So that's what was going on. That's where this painting came from. That's behind you. Is that where that's coming from? Oh, okay. Yeah, let's go. Let's go there.
So thank you. So I was in an intimate relationship, and this Venus crossing was happening, and the energy and the intensity of what was moving through me. I was out in the desert. I had in my mind we were to be together, but it was not like that. It was so he was in a whole other part of the desert, and I was off on my own. In my expectation, I thought that I needed to be in this balance with a man at this crossing.
Oh, got it. Interesting.
Yeah, so I had come back from my hike, and I had realized that it wasn't going to happen, and my expectations were, and so I'm out there, and here it is, it's happening, and I'm alone, and there was this passion, and then there's this energy that started to, it's only happened to me a few times, and usually it's in hot springs or places where the earth, mother there's a portal connecting deep. gosh, I never thought about it, but Venus returning, that is a portal connecting deep,
Yes,
isn't it?
yeah.
It's journey, right? And so there, I felt this energy start to shake in my body, and this language come through, and I just did everything I could to anchor that.
Oh, wow.
That was then. Shortly thereafter, I witnessed this man then come to me, and I'll say in the, um, I let him. I didn't rage on him when he treated me really hurtful. Just tear, and typically I had come to a point where I would be defensive, and so I didn't. I just, and I went into 8 days of complete solitude, internal, into the crystals of my heart, and I didn't go out. I spent most of the time out by the water. I live right by the creek. Now when I live here in Sedona, I have to live by the water. And this first day, so I'm reflecting on these eyes of this man who I have the ability to feel the sage in him, and yet the raging eyes. And so I'm sitting out by the water, and I have a connection with the Black Hawk. I mean, literally, I have this altar out by the creek, and the Black Hawk dropped a feather right on my altar so perfectly that I had to look around and wonder if somebody placed it there. And then I see him looking down. So I'm out there, and this hawk is here, and I start to see, I see this last experience of this man's raging eyes. And then I see every single man going back in time.
Oh, wow.
To my father, right? And so that's like young. That's like met my father a year and a half, but it didn't stop there. And this has only happened a few times. It didn't stop there. It went into lifetimes. And so it actually, the energy went from right to left in and it's only happened to me a few times where I wasn't intentionally journeying, but I went on a little mini shamanic journey, like this, which took me back to what I sensed was my first lifetime of suppression of male, where I closed him off. And it happened to be really, really far back. It happened to be, if you care, like a sacrifice into a volcano. Oh. That wasn't my ceremony. It went all the way back to there. And that was the first day. And then this poem emerged. And shall I share it with you?
Yeah, we'd love to hear your poem. I love everything she's talking about. It's like you're going within. You win in 8 days. This is a very feminine energy. So here we are, we're talking about the masculine and feminine. And then the masculine, she follows the eyes back, and it takes her back in time to either reclaim, to see, to remember, to all these words, to redo, to rebirth, and then you go back within. And this is so feminine. Yes, so please read this, what you wrote.
Yeah, and let me just preface it with what it did for me was it helped me see my responsibility.
Wonderful.
So, yeah, it was a shocker. It was a shocker, and I'm just going to read it. Okay.
Yes, please.
The eyes of a sage, his soul lost in rage. Those eyes I've seen in a million rhymes, echoing through me many lifetimes. Those eyes I've seen in every man, over and over and over again. Those eyes reflect his pain below. Those eyes would have me see him, I know. She hears his cries, she listens, she dives deep to free her mind, the chains that bind, to meet this mythical God his heart lost in time. Sending light into her keep, she prays to awaken from this sleep. Those eyes in truth are mine, I see, a lost and wounded space to free. I take accountability to seek the God who is in me. I dive to rise, 'tis love I strive. In her descends my heart intends, and now to you, my God within, this love I send. She dies to arrive, more compassion in her eyes. Her God, he cries, where have you been? You left me here with anger to send. Yet still here you are, a returning star. More love in your eyes, more magic in your art. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Mahaya, Merlin the Green Man, Neptune, Merlin the Green Man, Pan, those eyes I see are every man. My mythical God, the I that I am, united we come together again. Venus returns. We rise higher than we've been. We rise. And so for me, that helped me realize so much about holding back my projection when I have been raged upon.
Wow. If that doesn't speak to reclaiming the masculine within and all the pain that may have come with that, I don't know what does. That was beautiful. It was. Do you guys see what I'm talking about? There's such a depth. This is how her artwork speaks to me, just like that poem. Because she goes in and says, "Look at this. I'm going to just turn myself inside out, in a sense, or Spirit's going to show things inside out." And I think that poem takes us there to say, I love that, the responsibility. There's that word, R-E, responsibility, reclaim, remember. It's within, and that was so beautiful, beautiful poem. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
And that really does speak to the feminine as well. It's she's got to remember, reclaim her lover, and not to denounce him because of projections. Wow.
Yeah. And to realize for myself that energetically, or if what I saw in it is that I shut down that heart space so long ago that I think it's kind of how it works for us.
I would agree. When we shut down that heart space, which I'm guilty to, we all are from time to time in our lives, it's because of the pain. And when we shut that down, we really shut ourselves out of some of these unseen dimensions or abilities to traverse, or even abilities to receive and to allow and to notice. So I think for me, I've learned that the heart space is a place, is in a way a portal. It's the place in which I find my greatest self within. And boy, that was a powerful poem. Just touched. To me, that's the way you paint with words. And your images speak the same way that your words do, but just now it's visually. I'd love to explore some of the artwork that you have that was included in this fantastic deck in here, because you've got, I mean, I look at these, the pictures in here are black and white, but the pictures here are all in color, obviously. And when I look at this, like here's one, there's a beautiful one, Sisters Healing. I look at this. I mean, there's such deep imagery in here. You've got sacred geometry in here. You got the star tetrahedron. You've got some healing spirit animals. You've got the water. You've got all the elements of energies, of the essence of the four corners in these pictures. And your writing does too. Do you want to speak to how you just allow this to come through you? I mean, you have a very unique talent here, or ability, and you allow it to move through. You don't stop it. Maybe you can talk about that process, how you do allow the words to paint, the images to paint, to come out and express. How do you allow that?
It's one of my most favorite things to talk about. I didn't know I could write. I didn't know spirit would write through me the way I paint, um, which was really exciting when I discovered that. And actually writing Innocence, the fairy child, literally in front of my computer, a fairy light went so long inside. When we talk about on the Creations Child, the Creations Child for the next show that we do, it's the pivotal point where my art changed. For instance, Archangel Michael, when I painted him through, I didn't know if he was going to be a full-on face or a whole figure.
Okay.
So I call his spirit in. I'll use sacred geometry and holy water that I've collected from all over the world, and people bring to me to grid with crystals, the canvas with crystals, after I cleanse it in the creek or wherever I can at the time, before any paint ever goes on the canvas. I began playing this way before I moved to Sedona, and never really understood that I was making magic. I just was playing, and through the years I realized that I'll call it making magic. Magic is a synonym for medicine.
Yes.
Using medicine to using the energies, the sacred energies of water. I don't think Emoto was out then before, but the idea of using these energies to help us bring through the spirit. And then the intention for me to not create in my mind, I really step out of the masculine in this one, and I let spirit flow through me. So at that point, I'm in the masculine because I'm actually putting the effort forth in painting.
Yeah.
I'm way in my feminine so like for instance, Pele, when I painted Passion, there's a spirit of a black mamo above her head. And originally when I painted that, I had seen something in the clouds, and I painted it in. And it was just, to me, it was too self-contrived. It was too contrived. It was too linear. It was not spirit painted. Okay. And so I took a bottle of paint, and I said, no mistake, namaste. And I poured the paint over what I was imagining to be the mistake. And the white, it was white paint, and it turned out to be the white mamo, the spirit of the white mamo, which was very, very significant. I've had enough experiences at this point before painting to listen to when spirit tells me to do something, to listen and trust it. Ancient wisdom.
Okay.
Large, very, very, very large canvas had below, when I lived in the mountains of Malibu on this land as a hermit, more than 5 people would come up to buy my art, but I didn't go down much.
Oh, wow.
It was ancient Chumash tribal ceremonial land. It was very, very special. 2,000 feet above sea level, the rights land.
Oh, nice.
Sweat lodge, medicine wheel, built in at the 1985 harmonic convergence. But before that, the Chumash ceremonial land there. I like to recycle when I can. And somebody giving me this 4 foot by 6 foot, 5 foot painting that wouldn't even fit inside my house. And the wind on top of the mountain, the wind was intense, and it had blown and put a hole in it.
Oh.
And I kept getting that I was to use it anyway over a period of time. Eventually, I listened. I went. I bought a canvas. I cut a round circle, and I was going to make it a drum. I had already painted Creation's Child, which we will speak about. I'll show you a picture at the end. And this grandmother had spoken to me, and so I had wanted to honor it and paint a painting for her speaking to me. so I got that I knew I was going to paint this grandmother. This was the intention. I cut this circle. That night before, I used to have friends over for painting parties. I had a couple girlfriends who were going to come over the next day.
How fun.
I had intended on painting the orange, using the orange color because I had an aversion to it. And I realized it was the second chakra, healing sexual. So it very interesting. That night I had a dream. I'm a dreamer. I used to lucid dream at least 3 times a week for a long time in my 20s. But I pay attention to my dreams. And I was wrapping sage that I had gathered at a Sundance. And I didn't have any sage from Sundance. I was certain. So when I woke up in the morning, I thought, well, it wasn't a prophetic dream. But yeah, today I'm going to be painting the grandmother. I'm going to be doing something sacred. So I could see that was metaphoric. Well, I had this great stone table they paint outside before the girls got here. And underneath my stone table, I'm not kidding, was a perfectly packed pile of grandmother sage under my table. No wrap, no paper, no, impossible. And now remember, my canvas had blown feet
Away from there. Okay.
That sort of. So my dream ended up being very prophetic, and I ended up wrapping that sage and cutting the hole bigger and putting the canvas, actually cutting the hole bigger that I thought was a mistake, and using the hole to hold the sage, and created the grandmother, ancient wisdom.
Oh my goodness. So there's a hole that happened accidentally, but you made it bigger and you put the sage in there as you wrapped it? So it's like this three-dimensional experience of the canvas with the sage?
Yes. Yes.
Whoa.
Yeah, I used it. Now, at this point, now remember, I live on this land. There's a sweat lodge. Every Monday night, people are walking by. They don't typically walk in front of my place, but sometimes they'd meander and want to see what was going on in my studio, and they'd see this grandmother. And remember, I had the day of beginning her, one of the girlfriends that showed up, we ended up talking about the wounds that we had experienced from the masculine. And this friend, for the first time ever, shared how she was raped. And so the energy had been opened up for healing already in the second chakra.
Orange.
And I still had aversion to it. So I kept adding white eventually. And she turned out all this pink pastel peachy color. And people are coming by my studio and they're like, oh, she's really cool. She's really pretty. I'd already painted Creation's Child, which at this point stood red and black almost only, with just a little bit of blue. And I was concerned with people thinking I was too dark. When Spirit started to say, oh, it's funny. I don't know why they're speaking to me so strongly. Literally, they were saying, throw paint on the canvas, black paint. And I'm like, no. And it was a few days of do this, the same thing about the hole. And so eventually, I literally took a thick brush, dipped it in black paint. I went, okay, you want me to throw black paint on? Here. And I threw it on, and it created these African people, and it brought this shamanic feel into me, and all of a sudden I got to Digger. And so
it's the process. It's the process. What I'm hearing is you take the masculine part out where you think it through, what you're going to do, and you just trust this emergence as Spirit's telling you to do it, and it's all about the process for you. And then you guys, these paintings are just crazy. They're so awesome. And we are going to do another show on Creation's Child alone, because that's a fantastic image of all these, of the dark, the light, and everything we're talking about here. So you really just trust the process as you're working. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah. Well, like when I followed the line, so all of a sudden there was all these African people, and they looked like they were playing the drums, and they were village people. So, I love the process. It feels like I can step out of it and I can just say, what do you got to show me? And
nice.
So much magic that happens when we work that way. on the land that I lived in Malibu, I had already done several years of Native American ceremony and practiced offerings. And like I said, I painted, played, and prayed. That's what I did. I would go out and pray for the land, and I would put offerings down, and if I wasn't painting at night, I would be either under the stars or in front of my fire. And this happened. I was not on psychedelics, although I had tried mushrooms for the first time in my life in my 40s, 2 weeks prior.
Okay.
The healings, I'd avoided it because I heard it, don't do mushrooms if you don't feel good about yourself, and I really hated myself, so I wasn't going to do mushrooms. But this was with a sound healer, and I heard you could see the fairies when you do the mushrooms, and I asked to, and I saw them in vision, but I didn't see them three-dimensionally until 2 weeks later when I wasn't on medicine, and my fire. And she just appeared to me, and then she disappeared, and that was it. And this was so many years ago. I wasn't even sure if it was real. And then within a month, there she was again, and she was holding a 5-pointed star. Oh. I'm looking at her, and I'm going, wow. And then she turns, her whole image shapeshifts into a seahorse. And I'm like, wow, what's the medicine of the seahorse? Mm-hmm. Well, through my art, I had met this woman. Called me very, very rarely, but whenever she did, it was really, really special. I had a dream. You did this, or whatever. She calls me the next morning, wakes me up, and she's like, girl, something about the seahorse. And I'm like, what?
What?
I'm like, what? What are you talking about? You don't know. But she was always calling, telling me something wild and true. She's totally psychic, this woman. And I'm like, what? You don't know what happened last night, or do you? I saw a fairy in the fire, and then she turned into a seahorse. she's like, what? Tell me about the seahorse. What's it mean? And she's like, well, it's what we're missing in our men. Seahorse is the only species on the planet that carries the babies. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so the archetype image for the divine masculine is the fairies showed me is the seahorse.
Oh, wow. I love that. And so you have an image that you did of this, a painting, right?
Yeah, back then when I had it, I painted a seahorse. I'll show you this. This is not the original painting. I painted the seahorse, mm-hmm. and I had it for a year. And then it was never up to my standards, and I didn't even let anybody see it. It just wasn't that good, in my opinion. I judged it. But what I did after a year, because I like to reuse things, is I covered it all up, and the card strength came through. Oh. The painting is Vision of the Seahorses, Prayer for Africa. Now, originally, it was called Prayer for Africa. When I had an art show in Malibu, this woman comes up to me, and she's down the hall, and she brings me to the painting with her finger. Did you glue a seahorse in this painting? And I said, no, but knowing the story, show me. And sure enough, in the original, you probably can't see it on the deck of cards because it's so small. There's a perfect little seahorse. So the spirit of seahorse came through. Oh. Even though I had given up on that. I wasn't even thinking about the seahorse anymore. I'm like, okay, I honored that vision. Well, after that happened, I painted the seahorse again to honor that again.
On the same painting, you brought the seahorse back.
No, on a new painting.
Oh, a new painting. Okay.
No, the painting, Vision of the Seahorse's Prayer for Africa, Strength card, that remains.
Okay.
That sold a long time ago. I don't have it anymore, but that remains. But this is just a new painting that I did to honor the seahorse, and so it's going to be divine masculine in my new deck.
I love that. Wow. Okay, so your new deck, it's going to be about male, female? Is that what it's going to be about, the divinity with male, female energies, or is it a little bit of everything?
Everything.
Wonderful. Would you help with the audience today? We have a lot of creative people and artists that do follow this channel. Would you suggest ways, and this gets the masculine now, to help support the feminine to just allow the process? We live in a world, a culture that's so driven by time and schedules, and that's very, it can be very rigid at times. And this is asking to be flowing and free form and outside the box. What do you suggest people to get into that process with any type of art they may pursue to allow that feminine flowing?
Just to play and to I don't want to say negate the negative mind, but just be aware of it. I've had that negative talk for years before I realized that, no, painting is my prayer. And one of the things that happened back at the Center for the New Age, that my fear manifested, because blessings showed up for stepping out into what I feared, coming out more into the public, but then also some of the subconscious. A woman came through with her son, who was a curandera from Mexico,
Yeah.
and cursed me. Because she wanted me to paint her, teach her what I was doing with my soul paintings, and teach her and her son. And I didn't teach in those days, and I was so busy. I'm like, no, I don't. And she's like, if you don't share your gifts, you'll lose them. She pointed her finger at me. And then later that day or night, I was working on a soul painting. I could feel the energy of that curse. Well, whether it was, I heard it, my mind, I could feel it, and things weren't flowing normal for the way I think. Something was strange. And then there was at one point that helped me realize. I just pulled in and went, nothing messes with my prayer. And as soon as I anchored that in, the painting came through, and it ended up being phenomenal. It was Crazy Horse. It was medicine power in the deck.
Oh yeah, I remember that card.
A woman, when she first visited Sedona, had a medicine journey up at Shaman's Cave, and Crazy Horse was jumping from mountain to mountain. And so I realized that there's nothing that messes with the prayer.
And your process is play and play in that prayer. Is that how that works? Because you allow it to flow like play, but that becomes your your mantra, your prayer.
I call it painting, playing, and praying.
Oh wow!
Painting and praying, and have called it that since I lived in the mountains of Malibu, painting 15, 18 hours a day, where literally that's all I did. And I mean, if I could live that way all the time, I would. I'm also be in front of people and get used to that.
Well, you guys, by the way, this is our first time on Skype, and I record all these shows with Skype, so we're very honored to have you here, Cher. And we get to go into her studio this way, so yeah, she's really busting out another door right there by coming to us via Skype. I love that. Painting, praying, and playing. You can't really separate those three when you're allowing spirit to move through you. Spirit always tells me, the guides, I call them, always say joy. Find joy in anything and everything, and then that's where we are. That's where you'll find us. So, and that is through play. That is through laughter. That is through happiness. That is through that glee, that excitement as a child. I think to the innocence of a child, and how you could lay there for hours and look up at the clouds, or look at a blade of grass, or see the water moving in your gutter, and imagine that it's like an ocean for little bugs. It's amazing to take you right back to that innocence of the child and play. That's really good advice. I think if we can bring play and pray and painting, which I'll use the word creating, into other avenues of our life, I think it can make things that much more spectacular for us.
They really step away from judging.
Oh, yes. Wow. How do we do that sometimes? And when we take art classes, we're immediately judged, right? I know I studied art studio in undergrad, and then my graduate degree is art therapy, but I had to do the studio work, and I was told many times, like, you got to get this better, got to get this better. And I was just so done with getting it better, Cher, that we had this final project. I must share this with you. We had this final project in one of it was a watercolors class, and I was struggling with watercolors. It wasn't my best media, although now I love it. I wasn't doing it the way they wanted me to, I guess. So we had to take all of our previous paintings and do some kind of collage, whatever that meant to us, however we interpreted that. So I just took all these paintings that I kept getting low grades on and ripped them all up and just threw them in the floor and pile, just pissed off that I just couldn't quite get this, and I was being told that I wasn't good at this. I was like, wait a second, I know I can paint. So I took them, ripped them up, found this giant poster board, I didn't have glue, but what I had in my hand was like this paste, like this hodgepodge paste, which was thick and bulky. Took it, slapped all these little things, pieces of pictures, onto this giant poster board, but hidden within all these little pieces and fragments of my other paintings was the word art. You had to look carefully to find it, but it was there. I was so damn pissed off at this professor. I walk into the studio that morning, get there early, because I'm kind of like, uh-oh, I'm going to get in trouble for this. Throw it up on the wall, which we all do, and everybody puts their paintings on the wall. The professor comes in and goes, He's looking around at each of the paintings, walks back and forth, and I'm going, oh, great, I'm going to get an F, I'm going to fail. He goes, who did this painting? Who did this one right here? It was mine, with the hodgepodge mess of colors and the word art. He said, he looks around and goes, who did this? And I said, okay, I did. He's like, this is really good. I'm like, what? I just go, okay. And he goes, this is really good because you took something that wasn't working for you. You subliminally wrote the word art in here. I could tell you're probably pissed off at the process, and you let the process consume you. And I said, I sure did. Thank you very much. Got an A in that class. But it's so funny how we can be judged by art. And that actually kind of wounded me for a moment in my time of using art. But when I just let go and said, screw it, I'm going to get angry here and just give him something, I didn't care what it was, it became this wonderful piece of artwork, I guess. How do we get away from this judgment, though? That was a struggle for me in that class.
Play. Without expectations. Like what you did, you didn't feel like you were playing, but you were.
I was.
Like, oh yeah, right? Let me show you this. Well, your little girl was going, I'm going to play.
You are so right. I didn't think of it that way, Cher. It was about playing. It didn't matter how my emotions were coming out. That's the best thing about art. You can let everything out.
Hopefully you do.
Yes. 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 That's so important when you do art on this level that she's talking about. It is experimenting without that. I can't make a mess, or this has got to be perfect, or this is what I was taught in art school. And then you get into these liberating places and spaces I find within myself that take me to other dimensions. You use art, Cher, don't you, to really reach out and explore the unseen dimensions. Maybe you could talk to us about that a little bit, how that works for you.
Well, I'm not sure exactly how it works for me, but I know it works.
How do you allow it? How do you tap into that to allow yourself to navigate and move through and explore these dimensions? Your work is so multifaceted on so many levels of expression.
I just see things. I'm not exactly sure how to articulate how I see it, how I hear it. And they come in different forms. My passion is being a tracker. I track everything that happens.
Oh.
I make an intention to, I mean, literally to a point where, like you understand the concept of lucid dreaming?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So taking that concept of lucid dreaming and being aware and being able to control or be aware in the waking state, somebody calls me on my cell phone. I happen to be outside, and a dragonfly literally flies over my cell phone at that moment and poops on it. To be a message for the person that was calling was giving me a little bit of illusional bullshit. That's a habit. So it's like I like to. When it happened, I was like, oh, I didn't know about the illusionary bullshit at the time, but I was like, oh, well, let me just file that.
You really allow things just to flow, don't you? It's not so much, like you said, articulating it. It's really just, it is.
Being open to what it might be being shown.
Wow. And you're showing these, are you showing these images as you're painting, or do some of them come to you like ahead of time, like in a dream?
No, not so much dream. It's more as I'm painting.
Okay.
And it's always different. It's never, well, I won't say never. It's always different, it seems. And there's a reason that it's different. So like, for instance, the partner that wanted me to work at the Burger King, he didn't like to work. He was a Pisces. He didn't like to work. He used to watch. He was great though. I got all these photographs of me painting because he was taking them. He used to watch me and he wanted to see the magic. I would try to take a picture of it before and after and could never really capture it. For 5 years, he watched me and never saw anything. When I moved to England and ended up being hired to paint the Cosmic Christ, Love and the Dead, the man who hired me to paint him walked in while I was watching the eye form by itself. I had already painted in the right eye, to my perspective, the right eye. And I used a lot of water, and this was happened to be chalice water. And there had been water kind of leaked over onto his face, and the blue kind of fell in line, literally creating the exact same size eye, balanced as, I mean, I went in and detailed it, but I'm kind of got my jaw open watching it, used to things like this happening, but they were always different, never one like this. And I have a witness now who's walking in, and he stands by beside him. He's watching it with his jaw on the floor too.
Wow.
What did you do? What did you do? Because it looked like I was doing a magic trick or something. It was like weird. Why? Okay, so like after it tried, first of all, it was great. I had a witness because I finally had a witness all these years, and I have all these amazing, wild, magical stories. And they all could be completely, the sage.
Oh, yeah, that's amazing.
Underneath my table, it's like, really? Come on. Well, I had a witness on this one. And the eye. So then I like to go back and I like to see, so what does the magic mean? Why the eye for the Christ? Mm-hmm. Years before, when I lived on that land in Malibu, and this man who moved in with me, the Burger King man, I'm sorry, I got to change that.
BK guy, we're going to call him.
Jeremiah Stitchin, he taught me so much.
Uh-oh.
I would change that. I was waking up pissed at him every morning, and it was kind of easy to do. But this one morning, I woke up, I knew absolutely there was no reason to be mad. And it was before dawn. And so I went out to the medicine wheel and I sat in the east with the sunrise and I said, "What's up?" And I heard the name Sadie. And later about 7:30, I called my mom and I said, "Mom, Sadie, is that your turned out it was her grandmother. I'd never met her. She had died. I had never met her, but a very, very Christian upbringing. My take on it, what I perceived, I tried to speak with. She was influencing me. Me out of this very large family looked like the witch, looked like the devil worshiper, looked like the one who lives on top of the mountain praying at sunrise in a medicine wheel. To a Christian person, certain Christian people, it's scary. Yeah. She was she was stuck in the fourth dimension. She had expected to meet Jesus, I suppose, and she was stuck. And so what I got from it is that she was needing to reform me, and it was affecting my consciousness.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was actually affecting me like an entity attached. And when I tried to speak with her, there was no reasoning. This woman, wow. And when I asked my mom, what was she like? She said, oh, she was mean. Oh. So I asked Jesus come in. And he came in right away. He was there right away. She was almost kneeling down. And he said to her, kneel not before me, woman, but stand before me, you as the lion and I as the lamb.
Wow. And
she stared into his eyes, and I saw her expand like 3 times, and then just. And so the eye, when people look at this painting, that's the medicine in this painting, is that the ability to be able to expand into the truth.
Amazing. The stories that are woven with, that you notice, okay, we go back to that you like to notice and track things. It's that, your ability to do that and see where things are woven together to be able to come forth and tell the story to us. Because a lot of people may not even notice that. They've not even made that connection. But you have this gift to make those connections. And you connect this into your art. That's very fascinating.
Thank you. And yes. There's a lot of connections of my art that other people offer for me. Like, oh, did you realize the symbology, Kuan Yin and the fertility card, the deer are Lemuria, and you know, I'm not real privy to, or I'm way more now. But back then, when I painted Kuan Yin, I didn't really know who she was.
Oh, you didn't?
I had visited Sedona on my first visit to Sedona. I dreamed I was to paint her. And while my first visit to Sedona, I had already started Archangel Michael here.
Okay.
So I knew she was going to be green. I knew it was to be Kuan Yin. I was sleeping at the base of Cathedral Rock. The partner, he asked me, he said, is she going to have the vial? I said, I don't know. I don't know. If it shows up, it will. Well, so I call her energy in, I play, I intuit the colors, let it dry, I meditate with it, and when I see her dry, the thing that stands out the most is her big fat foot. There was a place for her vial. I could see this big area where her womb became, but her big fat foot was almost, let's see which one, whatever one it was almost like I didn't have to do hardly anything to it. And I cried because I realized that the Asian women bind their feet, and Kuan Yin was showing me that she is not bound.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that in your book in here about Kuan Yin, didn't you? About not binding the feet. I
try to bring in the medicine as best I can. I think I mentioned a little bit about the eye of Christ.
Yeah, you did.
Not knowing the story.
Yeah, it's fabulous. That's why, another reason why I really like these cards. And she's talking a lot about the images that are in these cards. But you heard her poem she read earlier, her writing about the imagery. But it's interesting because the writing, it continues like that in this book. Here, isn't this her right here on the back of this?
Yes.
Yeah, she's in here. I remember that image and her foot, and you mentioned her foot is huge. And so when I see your cards too, I want to project a lot of my own stuff as well as what I know about what the imagery means to me. And so I probably also shared that with you when I reached out to you because there's the word I would use for your type of art, what it resonates for me is mythopoeic. It really allows me to feel that deep mythology that touches humanity at a soul level in a very poetic way. And that's the word I would use for your art because that's what it does. And I like that you said, you're telling us all these stories, how they're all connected through your art process, how that works for you. And yet it doesn't stop there. People are writing to you and telling you how they're resonating with the imagery and how the imagery keeps them alive. That's what it is. The imagery can take you to a level of a new life, or rebirthing your own life through these images, to re-seeing, reclaiming. There's the RE words again. I just feel like that with your work. It just takes to such a level that it's like your life. You see these images. For myself personally, I see these images and I go, oh, then I could go on this whole journey. That's why I start my day with these cards. Then I can go on a whole journey of how that reflects. Here's the other word, RE word again, reflects throughout my life. And it's not even on purpose. It's just the thought of this card, what message is coming forth. And now let's see what happens in my world that day. It's just beautiful, the marriage of how this all comes together. And I don't know about you guys listening to the show, but hearing her tell her stories enlivens me. It also inspires me. You know, Cher, that's the word I want to go after right now, is the word inspiration. What do you say to maybe your art students that may, I don't know what type of art students you have, if they're beginning level or what, probably all different levels of using media. How do you help them? How do you help them help themselves to find their inspiration to work with the media?
It was, again, encouraging them to play. Just encouraging them to go with and take away the rules of what they learned and step out of their judgment. So one girl, when she felt like she had made a big mistake, which happens a lot when we are doing art. For some reason, it used to. And I was able to kind of help her find the gift in it and bring through something that gave her an excitement. Really, just it comes to playing.
I love that. We have to remember to play. Now, do you have a painting you're going to show us, which is Creation's Child, and where we're going to end on that note? Is that right?
I don't know if you can see. This is just a print of it.
So yeah, right. Is this one of the G Clay prints?
Yeah, it's way too big to bring in front of the camera right now.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be set. Can you see it? Is there a glare?
Yeah, I can see it. Definitely can see it, and I can also give them a link, which I'll put below, to our website where you can look at this even up close. It's just phenomenal.
Do you want to see the Venus Returns?
We would love to see that too, because we talked about that earlier. Please.
That is. Let me see how this shows.
Oh, yeah, that shows well. Yes, the light's perfect on it. Yes. Wow. Are those pyramids? It kind of reminds me of pyramidal, almost Yucatan-like Chichen Itza.
Yeah, it came through a dream. That part, the pyramids haunting. The pyramids you'll see in Creation's Child as well.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, but I literally had a dream that it kept happening when my eyes were open and I was telling my partner about it. And it was, it ended with these two double pyramids and a golden door in between. And so when the Venus Returns happened back in 2012, I had felt that there was some energy that was opening up.
Oh.
And by painting this had started originally was a soul retrieval back on the land when I lived in Malibu. So the whole thing really represents for me the return of the masculine, feminine within for myself. And this will be the medicine for my second deck. This is gratitude.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So you guys, she's going to have a second deck. Get your first deck. I'm going to put links below, too, where you can get her deck. I just love it. Well, we're coming to the place of the show where we close. And I think it's always important that you get to say the final words that you'd like to share with the audience. This audience is a very open audience to creativity, inspiring ourselves to becoming their greatest selves, to reaching out into the unseen dimensions, which to you is not really so unseen because you're capturing and allowing them to show on canvas. But what would you like to share with the audience as your final words?
Yeah, what I find for myself is I'll have an intention. I'll want to create something. this goes in my art and this goes in my waking life. I always find that Creator has a way better intention than I could ever imagine. In my paintings, I'm constant, especially because I'm doing these soul paintings all the time, and I'm constantly just blown away. I'm like, I could never have thought that. Thank you. I may have an intention in my waking life that I want to do something, and the universe can dream up so much more of a higher vision for me than I can for myself. And I just would love to encourage others to surrender into, to put that intention forth and to dream what you want to dream, and also to just let go of that then and see what happens. Just like I do in my art. I think I make a mistake in my life. Well, no mistake, namaste. Show me what I can make today out of that.
I love that. Well, Cher, where can people find you? I will put the links below, but where would you like people to find you if they want to reach out to you?
My website is mysticartmedicine.com.
Great. Links will be below, you guys.
Instagram, Mystic Art Medicine.
Okay. You're on Instagram?
I'm so not a techie, but I think I have a really nice page on Instagram.
I can see Instagram being great for you because it is a visual social media. So her link for Instagram is below as well, you guys. Cher, thank you again so much for being on the show and joining us today and sharing your beautiful, beautiful imagery and your beautiful poetic words. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. So there you have it, you guys. Here's a beautiful person in the world who's allowing the universe spirit to flow through her. She steps aside, she plays, she paints, she prays. She brings that into her life, allows that, welcomes it, and she couldn't live without it. So I hope that brought you some inspiration to also follow your dreams, to step aside and let the flow of the universe to guide you, especially at times when you say, I don't know what's next. Well, what's next is beautiful and it's in store for you. Just allow it. So thank you for joining us here today. This was Creative Visions TV. I'm your host, Karen Dahlman, and I look forward to seeing you again real soon. And be sure to check out part 2 to this interview, which we will do soon, and you'll get to see Cher again with one of her paintings. Thank you again for joining me. Bye-bye.